this discussion is still on the table. I mean, we just said you cannot settle this discussion, or you cannot wait until introducing the Caribbean guilder until you settle this discussion, because this discussion might end up continuing for the next 10 years. And so the reason is that the difference between the dollar and the guilder is not enormous, because both are a fixed exchange rate in a way, the guilder and the dollar, and a full dollar, so dollar using as a currency. The benefit and the advantage of keeping the guilder as a currency is mainly that in crisis situations you have more control on your money supply. Mm-hmm. So in crisis situation like a pandemic or a hurricane, you have more opportunity to provide liquidity to consumers and businesses to continue their economic operations, because
Correct.
you're not dependent on a third country on foreign exchange coming in. Mm-hmm. So that's one. And the second is if a bank or another financial institution runs into trouble, then you still have the opportunity to provide what we call lender of last resort support.
Okay.
So for that reason, in the end, we decided, or the governments decided to for the moment, hold on to the guilder and postpone this discussion until another time on whether you should use the dollar as an official currency in Sint Maarten. Because even if you would decide to take the dollar as an official currency in Sint Maarten, it would take quite some time to actually make the transition, because you would need basically make arrangement institutionally how the other central bank task will be divided, because basically you're stepping out of the joint central bank if you take the dollar. And so you need to come to a transition where you make agreements on how you get your dollars into your economy and ship them to the bank. So there's quite a number of practical decisions that you need to take. And most experts say you need a preparatory time of like 4 years or something to make this kind of transition. So in COVID times, it was considered that this was not the discussion to be had right now in Sint Maarten.
Right.
Yeah.
So when?
No, I would say you don't need this discussion, because to me we have published a position paper explaining why it is beneficial to keep the guilder. So I would say, well, there's no reason for this discussion, but obviously it's up to the countries to decide. So if they want to have this discussion, I would say like maybe you start something in 2030 or something. You start this discussion, see where you are, see what happens on the digital front also, whether there's a central bank digital currency, where the discussion is on that point. So yeah, you can come back to this discussion at some point in the future.
Is it more difficult because it's a foreign currency?
Yes, that's exactly the point. So you don't have a control of a foreign currency. You totally rely on your experts bringing a foreign exchange in your country.
His answers and reasons as to why we should maintain status quo has remained the same. And everything that comes out of it echoes self-interest. Self-interest, one for the individual and the other for Curacao. And I mean, if your only reason is in case of a crisis, then we have control, is not simply good enough in terms of the benefits for Sint Maarten. We are already using the dollar. That's what we are doing, Stephen. But you're trying to introduce a new currency that's going to cost us much more to use it, with no added value, no benefit to the people of Sint Maarten. I've listened to him. And then he goes on and said, there must be a transition period, but can't give a reason as to why there should be a transition period in terms of 6 years of 2030, he make mention. But when Bonaire and Sabre and Station dollarized, it didn't take them 2 or 3 or 4 years. It was done right away after we had the exit of the Netherlands Antilles. So I'm trying to understand the difference here. When I listen to the individual against Stephen, and it was throughout the whole campaign, nothing again comes out from him as to how the island of Sint Maarten in particular is going to benefit from the new guilder, as to not benefit from dollarizing our economy and using dollar as our main currency. Nothing whatsoever, Stephen.
Is this something that you're willing to pursue during the sitting of the next Parliament, MP?
Oh, most definitely. And not only that, I intend to also have it inducted in our governing program and our governing accord. Why? Because I know that the leader of the USRM also spoke about dollarizing the economy. So I have an ally in that aspect. But it should not be just simply to dollarize. The benefit of it should be given and shown to the people of St. Martin as to why we will be better off. I am still the proponent of seceding from the central bank and dollarizing the economy.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
Social and health insurances. Your social and health insurances.
Are you SXM insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SXM is cardless. Request your My SXM account today and enter the virtual office of SXM. Go to sxv.sx and sign up now.
Your social and health insurances.
My name is Chantal Vernus and I'm the president of Calypso Event, which organizes the event since 20 years. Well, on this event we have like more 120 exhibitors, art and craft markets, food, gastronomy. We have like something like 40 artists, live bands, dancers, and then that's it.
Fantastic.
10 Tuesday. So this is the first one, and we have 9 more coming.
9 more coming.
Yes, and it's going to be up to April 6th. Every Tuesday, this is the same concept because the people changing. And actually the people from Goncas don't want it to change. And the tourists that don't want it to change. The idea is like to create a kind of cultural and artistic exhibition and show. And the people want the same every Tuesday. If you change something, dancers will change. We'll have sometimes more dancers, less dancers. But the people rent the space for the whole event. So, and they don't want us to change because we have a lot of tourists coming, and the tourists want to see carnival dancers, and so we can't change. Even if we try, they want us to come back to the dancers and to the traditional stuff. This event, when I arrived on the island 22 years ago, already existed. The association of the restaurants, Lolo Hotel, and all the stores from Goncas already started this event. This was a small art and craft market, and with a musician a lot. And they asked me to organize, to keep the organization because I'm a professional organizer. So, and that was coming to start, that was growing. And I needed a professional organizer to keep it and to organize it. So that takes a lot. That takes a lot of time, and you need to be professional to have everything on the backstage. So when it's a small thing, that's okay. But when it's growing, you need to follow the rules. There is a lot of things to organize, and this keeps a professional to do it. So since then, I'm making it, and that's now 20 years.
All right, that's beautiful. And it's going good so far.
It's super good, yes. We're always expecting a lot of sponsors. We're looking for more sponsors because this event is a private event.
Right.
And we need help from the collectivity, from the tourism office, from the restaurants, from the stores, from the exhibitors. And that's how we make a budget to make this event work. People who never come, especially on the Dutch side, come and have this experience. This is a great experience where you have everybody, local people, tourists, dancing on the same boulevard.
In the long term, everyone will feel the effects of climate change. However, some people are more affected by it than others. The wealth of prosperous countries, often derived from activities contributing to greenhouse gas emissions, enables them to protect themselves from the effects of a changing climate. In contrast, small island developing states, such as St. Martin and the rest of the Caribbean islands, are less able to adapt and suffer more from its impacts. That is why we must also put significant focus within the Caribbean community on climate justice. Climate justice means addressing the climate crisis from a social justice perspective. It is crucial to protect and empower the most vulnerable groups in our communities. those who contribute least to climate change, yet are the most affected by it. Climate solutions must address social justice issues such as poverty to ensure effective and sustainable climate action. Failure to address these issues means unsustainable lifestyles will continue, further damaging ecosystems and hindering our ability to combat climate change. It would also not be me, and Ruben would never let me get away without mentioning the importance of biodiversity conservation. Biodiversity is essential for sustaining species survival, providing ecological, economic, and cultural values. In 2010, as the Nature Foundation was trying to establish the Marine Park, one of the ways that we got the Marine Park established is through doing an economic impact assessment. So what we did, we went out, we put a dollar value on the coral reefs and the marine ecosystems of St. Martin, and based on that dollar amount, we were able to convince the government to establish the area as protected. But climate change affects species distribution, shifts habitats, affects life cycles, and affects the development of new physical traits. Loss of biodiversity, ecosystem degradation, and climate change impact food, water, human security, the economy, poverty alleviation, human health, and personal, national, and regional security. These are issues of inter- and intra-generational equity, as today's actions affect future generations and disproportionately impact the poor. During the introduction, Marcelia mentioned that I was part of the team that contributed to the establishment of the Marine Park, which is great, St. Martin's first protected area, but unfortunately it is also St. Martin's only protected area. We cannot talk about being resilient to the impacts of climate change, or we cannot talk about true environmental conservation on St. Martin if you don't have an area on land that is set aside for conservation purposes. We do need a national protected area on land. Another example about the impact of climate change is the fact that 2023 was the year's worst year on record for coral bleaching in the Caribbean. Coral bleaching is a process where corals lose their vibrant color and turn white. This usually happens when corals get stressed, usually due to changes in their environment, like warmer water temperatures. Coral bleaching is bad because it weakens the corals, making them more susceptible to disease and death. This can have a ripple effect on the whole marine ecosystem, as many fish and marine species rely on coral reefs for food and shelter. Additionally, coral reefs are important for protecting coastlines from storms and erosion and have significant economic value for tourism and fishing industries. 90% of the beaches on St. Martin are provided by her coral reefs. The beaches are St. Martin's most important environmental and cultural resource. However, the sad story is that some studies are starting to show that some areas in the Caribbean, including this area of the Caribbean included, have lost 70% of their coral reefs due to bleaching in 2023 due to a higher than usual water temperature. The Caribbean's economy is particularly vulnerable to the effects of global warming. Key sectors such as tourism, agriculture, and fishing are directly impacted by changing weather patterns and environmental degradation. Rising sea levels and more frequent and intense hurricanes threaten coastal infrastructure, disrupt tourism, and lead to costly recovery efforts. Changes in rainfall patterns and temperatures affect crop yields and fish populations, undermining food security and the livelihoods that depend on them. Caribbean culture, renowned for its richness and diversity, is deeply intertwined with the natural environment. Global warming poses a threat to this cultural heritage. Traditional practices, festivities, and customs often rely on the bounty of the land and the sea, which are now at risk due to changing ecosystems. Additionally, the displacement of communities due to sea level rise and extreme weather events can lead to the loss of cultural identity and heritage.
SZV insured? Do you have a valid medical insurance status? SZV is cardless. Request your My SZV account today and enter the virtual office of SZV. Go to szv.sx and sign up now.
SZV, yeah. Your social health insurances.
At RBC, we know the roles you have to play can change quickly. Whether it's a homeowner, a new parent, today's head chef, salesperson of the month, or the family chauffeur. Whatever life asks you to be, RBC is a bank for all of you.
They was a bit disappointed with the number of calls, even including from the Minister of Education, with a number of what some refer to as some gang wars in schools. So there've been an increase in calls, but what we have to look at is the data to make sure that, again, this is not just a feeling because there's an increased calls from my end, but that what is happening in the schools, that we do some research. And again, that's why we're working with the Criminal Justice Research and Planning Unit to ensure that we understand exactly what is going on. Now, we have a immediate target program where anytime that we are called, the change agents go to schools within 24 hours. We had Arnie Duncan and his team from Chicago CRED visit us here last year. Now, he is in charge of a program in Chicago that looks at reforming gangs in Chicago. He's the former Secretary of Education under the Obama administration. And we're looking to visit them and take a team down there to look at some of the programs they're doing with gangs over there to see what are some of the programs that can be successful here. Again, data-driven. They too have some data in terms of what they're doing with their gangs and reform gang members. The Play for Peace is coming back again, the Jockey Edition, the Gold Cup Edition. I am happy to say that I've signed off a proposal called Youth on Track.
What we recognized was that the opportunities to engage, especially young, at-risk, vulnerable youth, were very, very minimum. And what I sought to do was create an opportunity for direct intervention clubs to become now the norm. And what is a direct intervention club? When we did flip the script, when we started, there were many of the young at-risk youth who identified things that they liked doing, to be a barber. Some of them wanted to bake. Some of them wanted to cook. Some of them wanted to become designers. How do you design and you can't sew? How do you become a chef and can't cook? So what we sought to do was put strategies and opportunities in place that the direct intervention clubs will go into communities